What's going on, gardeners? It's Saturday, October 1st, 2022, and for those of you who don't know, I live on the southeastern coast of North Carolina. Now, on today's video, I'm going to take a break from my regularly scheduled programming because yesterday afternoon, Hurricane Ian made landfall about 100 miles south of me, and as a result, I took constant tropical storm force winds with hurricane force gusts, and that caused quite a bit of damage around the property. So I'm going to take you on a garden tour of my entire yard and show you basically the damage I sustained from the tropical storm with hurricane force gusts and what I plan to do to recover from the damage. I wanted to begin the tour with my container garden area, and I made sure not to pick up most of the things that were blown over by the storm. I did pick up some of the small containers that were in the center of my yard right here because I didn't want them to sustain a lot of damage. But for the things that are against this trellis, the tie wraps snapped on them. So as you can see, most of them blew over, but I think they're mostly unharmed. I just wanted you to get a sense of what the wide open area in my yard sustained as per all of the wind damage that we got. So overall, not too bad, but I should be able to pick everything back up and tie things up again. Overall, I've been really impressed with how this trellis I erected has held up to everything. Surprisingly, all of these fig seedlings didn't even blow over, despite the fact that they're untied. I guess that they're just not top heavy enough to topple, and there's enough weight in the bottom of all these containers that it wasn't really an issue. Now, these citrus trees and my coffee plants, on the other hand, they were plenty top heavy, especially the citrus that was loaded with fruit. And it's not the trellis that failed, it is the ties. The ties failed. So when the ties snapped, that is what caused them to actually blow over. So I'm going to have to retie all of these things over here, but it's not a big deal because they didn't really take a whole lot of damage. That is the consequence to having a ton of fruit on some of your fruit trees. Here you can see a straight on shot of the trellis. All of my figs are 100% okay. The ones in the big containers, they're so bottom heavy that they never blew over. As for the figs in the 5-gallon buckets, they are extremely top heavy and blow over with ease. So the fact that nothing blew over at all is a testament to how strong this trellis is and how well it performed. None of those ties snapped, so I'm very happy about that. I'm sure I'll lose a whole lot of figs because of the swelling, but I still have some monsters on here, so plenty of figs left in the season. Just a little bit of destruction, but there's nothing you can do about it when you get a whole bunch of rain. Overall, all of my potted trees did very well despite the ordeal. My banana plants took quite a beating, but the leaves evolved to shred in high winds. That way they don't catch the breeze and the plants don't get uprooted. So all of that shredding, while it may not look good, does not hurt the plants at all. I'm happy to say that all of my figs did very well that were planted in ground. No damage at all, and I think it's because a lot of the wood is still fairly green and springy. They haven't fully lignified into hardwood yet. So no damage on any of the figs. I'm actually really impressed by that. Now my large astringent persimmon right here also weathered the storm like a champ. No damage at all to my very large astringent persimmon. And my beautiful banana mat back here, while the leaves did shred as we would expect, the plant did absolutely fine and there's no harm to it at all. Here are my younger fig trees right here. They did not sustain any significant damage. It looks like that this one branch hanging out here got a little bit bent, but it doesn't appear to be damaged. I think that'll largely get pruned off anyway because I don't like the way it is oriented. So no big loss right there. That'll probably just turn into cuttings anyway. And even my very tall fig trees that grew as a single stem from total dieback over the winter, they didn't really sustain any damage either. Some of the leaves look like they tore a little bit, but not really a big deal. And we're probably going to get frost in about 5 or 6 weeks anyway, so that's totally fine. And we'll lose the leaves naturally. And my grape took no damage at all, though it is in bad need of a pruning. Surprisingly, my blackberry plants took a beating. This plant right here had a chunk of it uproot, and it's actually lying way over there. So that used to be part of my blackberry plant. Now it is just going to turn into mulch, unfortunately. So a little bit of damage to this, but as you can see, it's growing back, so no big deal. It's not going to get hurt. This blackberry right here completely snapped, so we're going to have to prune that branch off, unfortunately. And this one right here looks like no damage to that at all. This raspberry plant right here, it did not like being dug up and transplanted, so I'm about to replace that. Same thing with this tayberry I dug up and transplanted, but it has a little bit of green forming down there, so I think that's going to be a-okay. I'm happy to say that my citrus in the back rear property right here weathered the storm a-okay. No damage at all, and I think that's because they're planted underneath this canopy of trees right here. And citrus in their native environment, they grow as understory trees. So they like being planted underneath things as long as they still get plenty of sun. And that's what you have here. You have the sun that comes from behind me from due south. So they get plenty of sunlight while being protected from things like frost that forms above and bad winds from the tree canopy. So it's the perfect setup if you're thinking about growing citrus. My pawpaws also weathered the storm just fine. They have grown quite a bit this season, more than in the past 2 years combined. Then my persimmon, I was actually afraid that I was going to lose this tree because it actually, the winds uprooted this piece of rebar over to the right. So I actually had to run out in the storm and I had to pull out the rebar, reinsert it, tie down the right half of the tree, and install another stake and tie up the left half of the tree. And when I did that, it stabilized the tree, and now that tree right there is totally fine, and it held all of its fruit, thankfully. And all of my Asian pear here, my peach tree, and my 2 apples all the way to the right, between the stakes in the ground and the steel cable that I erected here, they all weathered the storm just fine. So I'm happy to say that all of the fruit trees I have planted along the perimeter of my yard did a great job and did not suffer damage. The same story goes for my Owari Satsuma right here, as well as my Lila avocado in the middle and my Meyer lemon on the right. Now the house acts as a fantastic wind block for the north wind, and the sunroom acts as a wind block for the east wind. So while they were subjected to quite a lot of winds, they actually did pretty well. I also just pruned the avocado and the Meyer lemon, so that minimized the foliage that could get caught under the wind. So I accidentally had some perfect timing on that. It is the vegetable garden that by far got the most torn up. There's a lot of damage in the vegetable garden, but it's not that big of a deal because the season's really coming to an end. All of this corn is shot. I already harvested it. I just didn't have a chance to cut down the stalks yet. So that all got ripped out, but it's not a big deal. Some of my peppers over here, they definitely got blown around a bit, but everything is still standing, so I'm really happy about that. My retractable hoop house really got shredded, but all I have to do is just plug those conduits up top back into the PVC couplings, and that'll reseat everything, and then I'll be able to use the PVC clips to put the insect netting back on. I'll be able to fix that no problem. Now my modular hoop house here got completely torn to shreds. This was completely assembled before the storm, and because I left the insect netting on it, that is what it looks like now. So I really should have taken that insect netting off before the storm because it was a wind sail. It was, at one point it almost got picked up and blown out of the garden. My indeterminate tomatoes did take some damage because I was away for a little over a week for work, and I wasn't able to prune them as well as I should. So this branch that wasn't tied down got blown down. These suckers that were not tied up got blown down, and I lost a little bit of foliage here and there. But overall, everything's going to be okay. Most of the fruit held, and we're going to be getting frost in 5 or 6 weeks, so I need to top all of these plants anyway so they could focus the energy into what fruit they have. So not a big deal. Mother Nature came in and did a lot of the pruning already for me, but you can see how some of the branches snapped here, and they're drying up and dying because they've been cut off from the source. So everything here has to be pruned, and it has to be re-strung and clipped back together. My zucchini really took a beating. That is all wind damage right there. This plant looked pretty good yesterday. Same thing with my eggplant. It looked pretty good, but now it's just been lacerated so badly. Ditto this zucchini plant right here. And ditto these zucchini plants right here. They all got torn up really badly. But they probably, I mean, they're nearing end of life anyway, and they will ripen the zucchini that is left on there, I'm sure. So I'm not too worried. Like I said, the season is coming to an end. My determinate tomato plants are looking pretty shabby as well. They definitely got some windburn and some whiplash, unfortunately. Good thing my new bed of cold crops, they are a-okay. They're new transplants and they're so low to the ground, they did not catch any damage. They couldn't catch the wind. Same thing with my sweet potatoes. They look amazing. The asparagus has been absolutely incredible this season, so they're going to get frosted and we'll have to cut them back soon. And then my sweet pepper bed over here definitely got lacerated, but nothing got uprooted. So I'm not even going to worry about this. They can grow up against the ground for the next month or so before the frost rolls in. So overall, not really that big of a deal since everything is coming to an end anyway. Same thing with this cucumber. This cucumber looked great yesterday, but wow, did it get its butt kicked in all the wind. That is all wind lacerated. It actually looks like it was frosted on. Yesterday it was actually pretty nice looking. And in case you're wondering how much rain we got, that's how much rain we got. Most of this dump cart, this was completely empty before the storm, so it looks like we got probably about 4 inches. That's exactly what my weather gauge says. My weather gauge says we got 3.6 inches, which isn't that big of a deal for tropical activity. They forecasted way more, but honestly, they really blew this forecast big time. They said we were going to get a lot more rain and a lot less wind, and the exact opposite happened. But overall, wow, we were blessed with beautiful weather today. That is the one good thing. When a tropical storm comes through, you usually get amazing clear blue skies for days. It's like an air purifier comes through and cleans everything up. So it has been just a gorgeous day. The biggest damage was actually wind damage to my roof. I did lose a couple of shingles on top of the roof, 3 to be exact. They blew off and I was able to recollect them on the front yard. And so now I'm going to have to order a roof inspection and have that repaired. But overall, not really that big of a deal. It certainly could have been a lot worse. Did I say 3 shingles? I guess I meant 4 shingles. I lost 4 shingles off my roof. And while this definitely is annoying and it is a bit of an expense, I have to say overall we're pretty lucky and I have to consider myself very blessed. And I'm thankful that we got out as unscathed as we did. It certainly could have been a whole lot worse. So my to-do list of solutions to correct everything that happened is basically to call and order a roof inspection, have the roof repaired in the areas that are damaged, which thankfully was very minor. I have to prune and retie a lot of my tomatoes. I have to pick up and tie a lot of my potted plants that blew over to the trellis. And other than that, it's mostly picking up a lot of debris and removing things like the corn and anything else that blew down from my garden. But it's the end of the season anyway. So overall, I'm very thankful because things could have been a lot worse. For all of you out there that were concerned about us and knew that we were being hit by the storm, I want to say I thank you so much for your concern. It really means a lot that you were thinking about us. However, I have to say that we were very lucky. And while this is some annoying cleanup, overall, it's not that big of a deal. So the thoughts and prayers that you sent our way were greatly appreciated, beyond appreciated. However, I have to say that we need to redirect those thoughts and prayers mainly to the people of Florida, to the people in South Carolina, and people in places like Cuba that were also hit by the storm. Let's not forget about them. Certainly a lot of people out there are in far worse shape than us, and these are fairly minor expenses that I'll be able to recover and cover. And my garden, most of the things that were damaged, it's mostly the end of the season anyway, so it's really not that big of a loss. So thank you all again for your thoughts and prayers, but please give it to the people that need them the most. So I wanted to take this moment to give you a little walkthrough of my garden for all of you that were concerned about us, and let you know that while there is a little bit of damage, everything overall is a-okay, and we are all happy and healthy, and we weathered the storm overall just fine. So thank you so much for stopping by, and next week we intend to get back to the regularly scheduled programming. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.